This is the Energizing India podcast.
Welcome to the Energizing India podcast. On this program, we engage with the key protagonists shaping the future of the mobility and the energy transition sectors in India. I'm your host, Ravin Mirchandani, and today we step into the world of cities, the spaces that hold our daily lives together, yet often crack under the weight of growth, congestion, and unsustainable planning. Our guest today is Zohra Mutabanna, a renowned urban designer and thought leader who believes that cities must be designed as an ecosystem and not as afterthoughts. She works at the intersection of design, policy, and sustainability, asking bold questions on whether India's cities are truly ready for electric mobility, or whether we risk building EVs into an already broken urban fabric. Zohra brings with her years of experience, reimagining the built environment through resilience, inclusivity, and innovation. Today, with her, we will explore the Avoid, Shift, and Improve framework and the realities of public transportation and shared mobility, the design choices that will determine whether our urban future is destined to be chaotic or can be made truly sustainable. Zohra, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Evan. It's a pleasure being here.
Zohra, I'm interested, what makes you get out of bed every morning?
So I am a planner, and my biggest motivation is to, help our cities in India really realize the value of planning, of design, of not just being problem solving and jugadu methods, but really thinking this through. And our cities are unique. They're not like every other city in the world. We have different challenges. We have different contexts. And it really will take a lot of creativity to make our cities thrive the way other cities in the developed world does.
You could have been anything you wanted, Zohra. Why are you passionate about the subject of design thinking?
I love a city. I love how cities work. I love how they bring people from different backgrounds together. I love how we cannot sustain ourselves in cities on our own. We are not individualistic. We really work in a shared economy. And I love that about our cities. I love how an introvert like me can wake up and be a part of an entire crowd, feel like I'm contributing to something and yet be on my own. This is something very uniquely a city can do. And it really interests me on how we can make our cities as fun to be in as a city like a Paris or a London. We go to those cities as tourists, but really cities is what creates that kind of energy. And that's what I'd love.
Yeah, you're right. There's cities in the world that do definitely have an energy that you can feel. It's palpable as you get off the plane, whether it's Paris, London, New York, even Bombay.
Yes.
And it is the people in those cities and how they live and communicate with each other that defines the energy of that city.
Absolutely.
So let's go straight to the crux of the subject. Cities are what you love. Cities are what keep us going. They are an economy by themselves. And yet India has the most difficult cities to live in the world.
I think a part of it is because our cities weren't planned for the advent of vehicle movement. And I think there are a couple of reasons actually why our cities don't function that well. One is because in terms of population, the way our densities are situated is very different from anywhere else in the world. The only comparable we really have in terms of our densities is China. But then China is not a democracy. We are a democracy. The only other democracies we have are the US or some countries in Europe. And because of that, what happens is that we're trying to find our way through learning from best practices that don't necessarily completely cover our entire spectrum of challenges. And so we need to really, create that kind of thought process ourselves. It needs to be homegrown. It needs to be ourselves who really bring these thoughts together.
So I'm wondering whether we've missed the boat. So I'm going to press you a little bit on that, because when you're right. These cities were not designed not only for motorized traffic, but also not designed for the volume that you have.
Exactly.
When I think of cities like Bangalore and Pune, they're choking under the
Absolutely.
volume of even the two-wheeler volume or
Yes.
the pedestrian volume that is going through those roads that were not designed for it. And those roads were designed 5 years ago. Just the volume that's going through them is growing so quickly. Pune apparently adds 150 or 200 new vehicle registrations daily, which
Yes.
means you're getting that kind of pressure
Yes.
on the road
Yes.
every day, right? What are we missing in these new cities? Because Pune and Bangalore all have new planned cities. Well, Bangalore has Whitefield, Pune has the PCMC, and yet they are failing.
I think what we are failing in most is the ability to integrate transport and land use. Our planning methods, if you've gone into our planning methods, they are as archaic as can be. They're influenced a lot from how the cities were planned in Britain, for example. Their methods that were for greenfield cities. Our cities are not greenfield anymore. The growth that is happening is far outpacing the pace at which we are planning, and because of that the challenges come up front before we've even anticipated that something like this would come up. So forward thinking is absolutely missing. We're literally at the point where we're just identifying problem solving, and so we're not even reaching at the point where we can really plan for growth. And I'll give you an example. A city of Toronto's size, it has a planning department of 200 planners. That's not even something that we have in Mumbai. And Mumbai is like at least 10 times the size in terms of population as Toronto. So,
yeah, I'm going to be a little bit incendiary. So you're an urban planner with the skill sets that are global. But the people that are planning the cities of Pune and Bangalore, do they really have the skills? Or are they in there because the system gives them a job or shows them a job and there's no accountability or responsibility, no skill sets, no intent, and so you're just going to get the manifestation of that on the city?
Absolutely. I mean, there is a definite lack of skills at the risk of sounding extremely politically incorrect at this point. What we're teaching in our planning schools is also, again, reactionary. We're not teaching them to plan. Like so many planners that I meet tell me that, oh, now there's no point in doing anything in Mumbai. Now there's no point doing anything in Pune. Let's plan a new city. New cities aren't a function of planning. Planning just supports cities. Cities come up because of economies. And if you have a thriving economy in place in Mumbai, then you have to put in that level of effort in terms of planning. You're just a supporting actor here. You're not the main actor. So that's, I think, what a lot of planners mix. They miss the concept that planning is integrated. All planners have to work together. This is not just a land use planner being different and a transport planner being different or the economist being different. It has to be a holistic understanding of what really makes cities thrive. That we're totally missing. There is no skill
Is the
set.
problem fixable? Because one of the issues is the cities have railway lines running through them, right? Bombay and Pune are perfect examples, and the railway is managed in Delhi, and there's no way that the city council can even have any say over what bridges go over a railway line.
Yeah.
And then parts of the cities have, in Bombay it's the naval cantonment, in Pune it's the army cantonment. They do their own thing, and so they plan differently. So you have all these bodies that can't talk to each other. And you're right, China can do that. One person can just be the city mayor and decide he's going to level an entire neighborhood and recreate something that works. We can't do that in India. So is the problem, I know where you're coming from, which is we need good urban design, but is the problem way underneath that at the foundational level?
Absolutely.
Where is it fixable?
You've got the exact problem that exists. The way our governance structure has been set up, it has been set up for small kind of units that report to a bigger unit. When independence happened and when our constitution was written, the way our governance function was written, we did not have metropolitan kind of regions. We did not have urban areas of the size that we do now. So the example of Bangalore, for example, where they're setting up this greater Bangalore authority, a large metropolitan authority that has multiple municipal corporations under it, is a very interesting example. But really, does it go into the crux of democracy? Because GBA is not a governing authority. It ultimately does report back to the state. So I think the autonomy of cities is something that we will need to pull out into our governance structure to really make cities be able to look at all of these aspects together. Because right now we are still cities are like children to a state, right? The parent is still making the choices for the cities.
So before we get to EVs and what that means for India and Indian cities, I'm interested on how you think, from your perspective, technology might change how cities are planned in India, and AI, the buzzword right now. Apparently, Boston was able to reduce its congestion by 12% by deploying AI algorithms to identify traffic flows, and that increased obviously the quality of life of its citizens. Do you think that there's AI might actually be that complete buster of everything we do wrong, because technology will be allowing us to make the leap?
I wish I could say yes to that question. I really do. And I would have, if I think we had the systems in place for the technology to then just be, a means or like a technique to do that. But I think what Boston could do in terms of AI is workable because it has a traffic system that follows rules, that it has a reliable system, that once you tweak, like we had a transit, a signal prioritization method, where on a traffic signal, a public bus is given more priority over others, right? And that keeps a public bus system much more efficient than driving by your private vehicle. It's a clear method of ensuring that the public bus is a little bit more attractive in terms of time. That is not possible in any city in India, because you cannot give one certain a traffic priority unless you've caged them and you have these barriers and you have a camera and you need like 10 kind of accessories to make technology work. So I think technology by itself is going to be challenging. And another example I really want to state here is that we had this major attempt with the smart cities. Right? There was a lot of hope with smart cities that somehow if we make our systems smarter, then our planning will improve. Most cities are right now sitting on huge control centers and they have no idea what to do with that amount of data and information. So capacities inside a city are lacking. Again, reiterating the point of when there's no planning skill set and no idea of what to do with data, there's nothing that we'd really be able to achieve with AI either.
So I keep pushing the EV question further because what you're saying is so interesting. But I'm going to put you on the spot here, Zohra. Let's say you had the freedom to fix the problems of Bombay when it comes to urban design, and you had absolute freedom. In this beautiful, wonderful world, if that was possible, what would you do?
I have a very easy fix, actually, but something that is not designed by me, something that London has done, Singapore has done, and New York tried to do: congestion pricing. It's based on a very simple philosophy of the polluter pays. So if you divide all modes into how much pollution they create, and there is a nice spectrum that exists, actually, that knowledge already exists. The more you, as a per capita, not your vehicle, but as a person, the more pollution that you're creating, the lesser priority you have, the more penalized you will be. And therefore, a pedestrian is the most sustainable mode of transport, because literally no pollution at all. Then moves the cycle, and then probably the public bus, depending on what the vehicle technology is and what the fuel is. And thereon maybe trains and all of those modes, they move on further. So congestion pricing is a tool that London, Singapore uses, where they charge vehicles to come inside the core city. They have a ring city concept, right? Where the closer you go inside the city, the more charged you are. And obviously that does dissuade people from using private vehicles. The only way to make our cities livable is to actually address this issue of people-vehicle conflict. There is a conflict. When vehicles come into the picture, they move at higher speeds. They are dangerous for pedestrians. Our elders cannot walk out without any support. Our children cannot be left alone. To make our cities livable for all of these different income groups, it is essential to address this conflict and find a place for both of them.
But Zohra, London and Singapore were able to do that because they have amazing public transportation systems. Bombay, until 2025, didn't have, even now we're still waiting for the whole metro line to go live, did not have that option. And clearly in Pune, in Bangalore, you really don't have the option. And that's why everyone has to buy the two-wheelers, which is even more unsafe. And then they're driving without helmets, and there's all sorts of other things. There's 90% of them are polluting ICE two-wheelers. The reality of what you're suggesting sounds a bit socialist, because congestion pricing will only make more money for the city, but there's no alternative for the citizen at the moment in any of these cities. Bombay will have it, Delhi has it, Bangalore will eventually have it. But in most of these cities, the alternative doesn't exist. You can't even walk. you can't take a cycle. It's so dangerous. Walking, there's
Exactly.
no sidewalks. So there's a lot more that needs to be done in this condition.
Yes. So that's a push factor. We also need to work on the pull factors. That is, you want to also invest then in the infrastructure that attracts people to using the sustainable modes. But I also want to bring in this other ignored segment that we have. Most of our cities, actually 90% of our mobility needs are serviced by the informal sector. And that informal sector is a huge number across India. In some cities, they are almost the entire load. And in tier 1 cities, it's a really huge number. It's at least a 50 to 60% number. If you walk out in Mumbai right now, you look at the vehicles on the road, you will see that 90% of them are yellow license plates. So these are what we call as shared mobility, informal mobility, popular transport. There are many different names that they have, and they can help us in achieving this. They're not regulated. They're not even given formal status as of this point. So they're a huge audience. I think they're the ones that can help us get us through.
I agree. I think there's problems there as well, in my opinion. When I look at the electric rickshaws in Delhi, they're patently unsafe. They're assembled with Chinese kits. There's absolutely no road safety in them. They're incredibly uncomfortable. And the rickshaw driver is making 200 rupees a day net. We've done a pod on the rickshaw driver. So there's not much of a quality of life or any incentive for them to be investing in safe transportation. So it's a systemic issue, isn't it? It comes back to design thinking. So coming to the EV podcast, we have to talk EVs. So coming to the EV component of this, Delhi had set in 2020 a target that 25% of registrations would be electric by 2025. We're in 2025 now, halfway down India's EV journey of the decade, and Delhi's achieved 15%. Whilst we could say they failed in their target, it's still astounding to have gotten to 15%. But the truth, from your opinion, are cities in India structurally ready to absorb an electric mobility wave, or are we just building EVs into cities that weren't designed for these in the first place and just overlaying a broken infrastructure with something that's meant to be clean but is marketing?
My response would be that both. Actually, I think that there is space for EVs. It is up to the government to prioritize a certain sector to electrify much earlier. And those sectors are the buses, the freight, the trucks. All of those sectors need to be electrified first. And unless and until those get electrified, we're not going to start seeing large-scale impact. The private vehicles will take much longer. They will take much longer to really, achieve any of those targets. So I think at present, having just a standard target is probably not so useful either. But I think we do it for the sake of being able to at least measure, which is great. So 15%, I think, is a great success rate, to be honest. Yeah. And it is evident that it is something that is happening in Delhi, because Delhi's proportion of privately owned vehicles versus shared and commercial vehicles is much more different than other cities. The private vehicle owners are actually jumping into this at a much faster rate than the commercial owners. And the reason is simply because the ones who are running the shared transport and the public transport, they don't have the capital to be able to invest in electric vehicles. And I don't think the subsidies are reaching them either. The public companies, bus companies, subsidies are reaching them, and they are helping them with creation of depots and, electric charging and all of that. These guys don't have the confidence of charging. They don't have spaces where they can charge. The public charging infrastructure is woefully poor. Most people who are setting them up are car owning companies, right? They're the ones who are setting up these networks. So it's an entire middle segment that is missing, which does account for majority of our real count.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We had Reji Pillai, who's the CEO of the India Smart Grid Forum 3 years ago on our podcast, and we asked him if he wanted to electrify India quickly, what should we do first? And he said, well, actually take all the buses. You've got thousands of buses in mega cities, and if you were to take a target to convert all of these into electric in 10 years, you've taken away a lot of the pollution in the city and also improved the quality of life for the citizens. And I completely agree. And the government is doing that, and they're doing a very good job. It set that You often hear a rich country is not one where the poor have cars, but where the rich take public transportation. And I think I'd love in my lifetime at least to see India or some of the cities of India reach, that particular tier where everybody's taking public transportation, like in Hong Kong or Singapore, where it's safe. There's 390 million registered vehicles on the roads in India. And the statistics show about 82% of those are 2 and 3 wheelers. Overwhelmingly 2 wheelers, not 3 wheelers. So it's still personal transportation. 10 to 12% are trucks and buses, and only 8% are personal vehicles. So I completely agree with you. Focus on the trucks, buses, and the rickshaws. What's interesting, or I think what's heartening, is that already more than 50% of new rickshaws sold across the country are electric.
Yes.
So that's moving very fast. I'm hoping to see that in buses, particularly intercity buses after the intracity buses, and then, of course, the trucks, which is going to be the really interesting story for India. Yet Indian cities are the most polluted in the world. Are we able to fix this by electrification? What is missing in our thinking today, Zohra?
That is a great point. So, pollution really is created in our cities because of a number of factors. And if you look at the source apportionment studies of Mumbai itself, the biggest polluters in Mumbai are PM 2.5 and PM 10.
Can you explain what that means to our audience?
So particulate matter are these small matters, the small dust particles that really get into our respiratory system, and they cause health concerns. And PM 2.5 particles are so tiny that they really just get directly into the lungs. Like our nose is not even able to filter them out.
And these come from ICE vehicles, do they?
These come from ICE vehicles. They actually do come from road surface material as well. So if you look at the entire composition, vehicles count for 25%. Maybe this was a study done in 2023 by CSIR and NEERI along with the central the pollution control board in Mumbai. And while 25% came from vehicles, there was an almost 30 to 35% that came from road resuspension, which means that when vehicles run on roads, the dust that gets resuspended because of that is what creates this kind of pollution. And PM 2.5, the number is much lesser. Like vehicle pollution is probably still at 25, road resuspension is 14%. Marines and aerosols are really a large number. So your wind patterns and a lot of different things also affects how pollution really affects you. The fact is that a lot of the AQI sensors that the government has put are up high. Pollution is affecting you at street level, at your nose level, and that is where vehicle pollution affects you the most. And so even though we say that yes, there are industries and there is other aspects, why we talk so much about vehicles as as something that can really impact pollution is because they are affecting you at your level, and both of these, vehicle and road resuspension. So while electrification can control pollutant creation through tailpipes, they will not be able to reduce the road resuspension pollutants. That will continue to remain unless and until we fix the problems with our streets, with our construction methods, with maybe timing our construction, phasing it out. So a lot of different aspects also need to be considered if you were to solve pollution per se.
Have you ever had this kind of conversation with urban planners or urban decision makers in India? And what kind of hearing did you get? Did you get a kind hearing, or are they sensitive to all that you're saying?
They are. Most of the times they are. I think everybody understands the problem, that this is a huge problem, and the best way to resolve this is really by addressing the problem of congestion. So when vehicles are idling less, obviously they create less pollution. The issue though is that there are much bigger problems that they're trying to solve as well. And mobility by itself is such a huge problem. Like, how do we ensure we get most people from A to B? But it is also like, in mobility also has this problem of induced demand, where the more capacity you create, the more traffic you see. Okay, because people who could potentially now be working from home are now making an extra trip. because behavioral aspects also enter into this picture, which I think most people are not anticipating. Like, we have a new road built. The first few months, you will see that new road, new flyover has reduced demand. But as soon as people start realizing, oh, this is a shortcut, they will start taking that road. So it gets blocked up again, right? That's what happens with all the outer ring roads. Now you built an outer ring road, and now a developer sees potential. Oh, this is a road where I can build a nice development. And it is outer ring road. It is like easy drive right next to the outer ring road. And within a couple of years, it's completely chock-a-block. And now.
So, Zohra, the company TomTom puts out something called the TomTom Traffic Index,
Yes.
Which is a global ranking of data that it publishes annually, and it looks at the average travel time per kilometer, average daily time lost per commuter, peak congestion times, year-on-year changes, etc. And the TomTom report said the average Bombay citizen loses approximately 82 minutes per commute daily in traffic. It's astounding to think that much of your life is lost in a commute. Amsterdam cut car use by 20% just by redesigning the streets. Do Indian cities need to rethink their priorities? Are we just putting lots of money in concrete? Is there a better way to do this?
Absolutely. And here I'll again go back to what we had discussed earlier about why we're looking at solutions from other countries to solve problems that are so uniquely Indian. Like I said, the population densities that we have in India, the kind of travel demand that we have in India is comparable to a China, but we don't have that kind of governance system where we can just shut things down and build a system and then make it happen. We are also a democracy, so we also need to have this, the private entrepreneurship happening, and we have a lot of other needs as well. And because of that, I think, yes, we do need a little more power in the way we are taking our decisions. There are some decisions that will be unpopular that our cities need to make, but are extremely difficult to do because of our democratic system again. But without these, I think we will continue to suffer through the traffic problem. It's not an easy solution. It's a very difficult solution.
You're not leaving me with much hope, because I don't think the system is geared to be able to sort it out.
No, I think there is hope. I think there is hope, and there are many sparks of hope that have emerged. And one of them is the governance system, really. If we are able to create a governance system where the power is autonomous and cities have the autonomy to, create some strong decisions or take some strong decisions to create impact for themselves, it will happen. But otherwise, it's a little difficult.
So maybe we'll take you to something that could help India, and it's a phraseology that you advocate a lot and you post a lot about. And I'm not sure if you call it or the industry calls it avoid, shift, and improve, ASI. What is this avoid, shift, and improve? So
avoid, shift, improve actually is a framework that was that exists. The idea exists. It has been called as in the ASI framework by global agencies, and the idea is that if you want to address mobility solutions, you have to address them through the avoid, shift, improve framework. The avoid framework really talks about how do you, first of all, reduce travel demand in a city. And by that, I don't mean travel demand. Like, if the more trips you're making, obviously, the more economic functions you're doing. So that is good for a city. But we don't want to control the trips. What we want to control is the overall trip length. So let's travel less in terms of kilometers traveled. And that you can do by having workplaces that are closer to your home, by having a 15-minute kind of a city concept where all your necessary requirements are within a 15-minute walk of your home. So you are walking more and you're taking less motorized trips. So how do you avoid motorized trips? That's the first metric. Shift is when you're making that motorized trip, can we influence people to use a public transport system or a shared transport system, something where you're not individually creating congestion? And then improve is to really address the vehicle type, fuel type, and improve metrics that way. Now, electrification falls in improve, and that will create maybe 30% of the total impact. The rest of this 66% really has to be created through avoid and shift. And that can happen through planning methods, that can happen through regulatory methods, that can happen through policy frameworks. So all of this is possible if you look at all three of them together.
So let's look at some examples of all three of them in India, and maybe we can talk about cities that are doing it well. Let's talk avoid first, and the cities I throw at you are perhaps Bangalore, which has a problem, and Guwahati and Panjim, which are trying to sort out that problem, which have a much higher quality of life, but do face an immense influx of outsiders. So they're very uniquely different problems.
Yes.
How can they sort it out? Are there issues like a lower density periphery or mixed use zones or transit oriented development? Have you got examples of how cities in India are actually doing it well?
I wish I had an example of cities in India who are doing it well, but let's take it from small cities versus large cities. Small cities already are 15-minute cities where everything is within a 15-minute either walk or cycling distance, and there is they don't really even understand the challenges of congestion yet. The vehicle ownership is low, so they're mostly.
Do we have cities like that in India?
We do. Yes, there are cities like Rajkot, for example. Smaller cities, Nasik. Small city, they don't really have so much of a problem. Everything is within their circle of influence, right? The issue happens when that city grows beyond a certain number, and then now we are faced with the challenges of, okay, now they need to have bigger trips. Bangalore, for example, small city. It started with a small city inside the first ring, right? The inner ring road is where it started. The employment center started emerging at the periphery. Now, employment centers emerging at the periphery is the worst thing that can happen from a planning method. If it's in the center, then you can have these radial networks, right, that feed into the employment center. But when an employment center is at the periphery, that means your entire network is getting clogged, all getting pushed onto one corridor that has to serve these multiple employment centers. So these SEZs that came on the periphery were okay if they were planned as mixed use centers. If we would have planned them as polycentric mixed use growth nodes where they are able to serve their own population and like a satellite city kind of a thing, right? Like how we have in Navi Mumbai. When we created that, it was a satellite city. That then you work where you live where you work. You also create your schooling there, your healthcare centers there, all of your entire infrastructure can come out there. Now, again, that there is a new term for that, which we call as transit-oriented development. That feeds into the idea of public transport. A lot of metros being planned, a lot of large-scale mass transport being planned. Use the station as an anchor, and around that now build the employment, add the residential. Everything needs to come together so that within that circle, it's walkable. Your trips get minimized, your motorized trips get minimized, and that's how avoid happens. Then you're making just that one trip. Maybe that one person in the family has to travel far for work. Everybody else can do it just within there.
It does make a lot of sense. And as you said, there's only one city that seems to have done it right, and that's Navi Mumbai. It clearly didn't happen in Pune and Bangalore or Delhi.
I mean, to be honest, the fact that Mumbai and Navi Mumbai can sustain itself with the kind of densities we have is because this happened. Otherwise, it would have just, like Bangalore is shut down, right? At this population density level, it cannot move. Mumbai has been able to continue to move despite at much higher density. So it's obvious because
Very
of that.
Fair. So then let's talk about shift. And shifting is to talk about walking, cycling, using public transport. I find that so hard for India. I can see people shifting to electric because it's an easier commute. You do believe that you're saving the planet, but you're still getting speed. You're getting mobility, flexibility. What do we need to do to address the shift component in India?
Yes, so shift is a hard one. Shift is an extremely hard one. But to be fair, I don't think we really need to shift as much in India as we need to prevent the wrong shift to happen. Because we are a poor country, we have the advantage of having a huge captive audience that already uses public transport. One thing that we did wrong maybe is, when we try and make personal vehicles affordable, it feels like we're catering to the economy and we're trying to make it affordable. But all we're doing is we're just, blocking infrastructure. We are creating a cost. It's not free. It's not affordable because everybody else then has to pay for that extra road that we had to build to fit all of these people in. So I think the understanding of what is affordable and what is costly needs to be understood here. And for the entire a city or the entire population to find it affordable, it is better if less people own private vehicles, personal vehicles. Yes, a lot of them currently own two-wheelers, but even within a family, there is one two-wheeler which the male member generally uses. The women are still traveling, by shared transport or public transport. So the percentage of people using public and shared transport in India is already high. We just need to retain that, and to retain that, we need to understand how trips happen. Like a public transport trip is never a origin point to a destination point trip. There's always a first mile and a last mile. So we need to make that trip seamless. And as we are moving towards, across the country, we are building a lot of mass transport. But unless and until we are able to really address the first and last mile, that mass transport, leg is not going to be a popular leg.
Yes.
So, and that's where walking and cycling comes in.
The first mile and the last mile has to be just as comfortable and safe.
Absolutely.
As
And
the
I'll
mid-mile
say
is.
this, that first, the walking and cycling first and last mile sometimes applies to personal vehicles as well, because your personal car cannot always go right up to your destination. Very often you are left a few, kilometers or a few meters away at least, and you have to make that last mile walk. So this walking is something that is for everyone. 100% of the population needs it. And unless and until we address that, that's an easy one as well. It's not very expensive. So
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but you do need sidewalks that don't have manholes without covers that you could disappear under in the dark.
And they're wide enough. They're wide enough so I don't feel like I'm sticking to the next person while I'm walking.
Also, Hong Kong and Singapore, where you have weather-related issues, it can be very wet, it can be very hot. In Hong Kong's case, it can also be very cold. They fix the walkways by making them all weather walkways, right? So these are elevated roads, often air-conditioned. For walking tracks, not roads, but there's a lot that we need to do in India. Final subject then is the improved bit, and the improved bit is, as you mentioned quite eloquently, electrification falls underneath that. I'm very hopeful for India's EV story. In 2020 when we started counting green number plates, which is the registration plate for an electric vehicle, you'd see one a month, and then at the end of 2020, you saw one a week, and then the end of 2021, you saw one a day, and then you saw one an hour, and you see one a minute, and you see many a minute, many a second. So it's going very fast, and it's in the right areas. It's in public transportation. It's in three-wheelers. It's in two-wheelers. So I'm not even worried about the car story, even though there's 50 models available already. I'm not worried about that. But it's happening, and it's very good. You raised that it'll take away some of the emissions, not all, and some of the PM particulate matter, but not all. But I'm interested in your perspective. Are our cities technically ready for this transition to electric mobility? Do we have what is required, not only in infrastructure? The grid might be able to handle it, might not. But even to get a public charger here for this building in Bombay, you need 18 permits, starting with a police NOC. So you give up right from the get-go. And if you want to put a slow charger in your car park at home, the bylaws of the society, and then going through the rigmarole with people who don't understand it. These are not problems that everybody was even thinking about when we went down the road to electrification. You get tripped up so quickly. Are we ready for this transition?
I think this is one transition that is going to be much easier to actually function, because this is a conversation that we've been having in our groups as well. That the beauty about electrification is that you do not need to go to a petrol pump. The petrol pump is right there.
You save the 1 hour a week.
You save that 1 hour. You're also saving land that can then be repurposed to something far more useful. So I think as a story, I think electrification has less barriers than any other mobility movement that has happened, and that is evident from the fact that the ones who are the uptake that is the highest is at that level of two-wheelers, right? Those are the guys who are shifting at a really fast pace. The one thing where I feel like electrification really saved us is this last mile kind of delivery that we were doing, right? That was a very reverse shift that had happened. Like people used to walk for their grocery. Now instead of that, there is a vehicle that is bringing your delivery home. That was a COVID transition, and it would have been scary for our cities if all of those vehicles were not electric.
Oh, totally. Yes.
Thankfully, now they're electric, so their impact isn't as much. And now there are tempos that are electric as well, and a lot of last mile freight delivery that is going electric. It's a huge savior. So I think there are electrification has the potential to save us from really going from bad to worse. Whether it will help us reverse our story, I don't know, unless and until we fix these structural flaws as we have spoken about. But it really does have the potential to address any future concerns. Those can definitely, if we anticipate it well in advance, and if we can, even without anticipating, really, the market is employing all kinds of innovations here to address these problems, which is a great thing. That's what a city does. No, it encourages a market to thrive. So I think if you're able to address a little bit of these land issues, a little bit of these licensing issues, a little bit of those debt issues, banks need to become a little bit more friendlier towards lending for electric vehicles. So all of these things I think will happen over time. They are the ones who will slow us down maybe, but it will still happen because the market has clearly understood this is the way to go. This is how we'll save costs.
So last question then, Zohra. If we sit together in 2035 and you are describing an EV-ready Indian city, what does it look, sound, and feel like?
I think whether EV ready or not, I think a good city would be the same in my head. And a good city is a place where I can walk out with my child without feeling like I have to save myself constantly from the fear of a fast moving vehicle, where I can walk calmly, where my mother can walk calmly, where I'm breathing clean air, where I can actually walk on the streets for a walk and I don't need to walk inside my gym. A lot of these things, being able to experience a city slowly, it doesn't always need to be through a fast paced train or bus or a personal vehicle. That really is, I had a professor in planning when I was studying at university. He said the reason why these light rail trains that work in Europe are so much more fun than the underground metro that you have, the underground subway that you have in New York, is because they let you sit and watch. That's what cities are. I would really love for our cities to become watchable, to become, ones where we can, wherever we are sitting in, whether it's a vehicle, it's a train, it's on the sidewalk, like you sit in Paris, like you watch those people just watching.
Promener, as they call it.
Yeah.
Yes. Zohra Mutabanna, what a refreshing conversation. Thank you for having made the time to be on the Energizing India podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lovely conversation.